What does it really mean to be human? Long before cities, language, science, and civilization, before anyone ever looked up at the stars and asked questions about the universe, our story had already begun in the most unlikely place. It began in Africa millions of years ago, with creatures that were neither fully ape nor fully human, but something in between. They did not know it then, but every step they took, every change in their bodies, every struggle to survive was shaping the future of the human race. Human evolution is not a straight line. It is not a perfect ladder where one species simply replaces another in a clean and orderly sequence. It is a vast, complex, and often brutal process filled with dead ends, adaptation, extinction, and survival. For millions of years, many different human ancestors lived, competed, adapted, and disappeared. Some were small and fragile. Some were powerful and intelligent. Some used tools. Some controlled fire. Some buried their dead. And somewhere along this long and winding path, our own species finally emerged. The earliest chapters of our story began around 6 to 7 million years ago, when the lineage leading to humans split from the ancestors of modern chimpanzees. This was not the birth of mankind as we know it, but it was the beginning of a separate journey. The first hominins still looked very much like other primates, but they had started to move differently. They were learning to walk upright. That single change may seem simple, but it was revolutionary. Walking on two legs freed the hands. It changed the way food was carried. Tools were used, babies were protected, and the world was experienced. It was one of the most important turning points in the entire history of life. As time passed, these early ancestors evolved into more distinct forms. By around 4 million years ago, species such as Australopithecus had appeared. They were small-brained compared to modern humans, but they were already walking upright with surprising efficiency. They lived in environments that were changing rapidly, with forests giving way to open grasslands. Survival required flexibility. They had to climb trees, move across the ground, find food, avoid predators, and adapt to a world that never stayed the same for long. Then came another great shift. Around 2.5 million years ago, the first members of the genus Homo began to appear. This was the beginning of a new era. These early humans were not yet us, but they were becoming increasingly human in the ways that mattered most. They made tools. They used stones to cut, strike, and shape the world around them. These tools gave them an advantage. They could process food more efficiently, defend themselves more effectively, and begin to influence their environment in ways no other species had done before. One of the earliest and most important of these species was Homo habilis, often associated with the first stone tools. But the story did not stop there. Homo erectus came next, and with it came a major leap forward. Taller, more mobile, and better adapted for long-distance travel, Homo erectus became one of the first human ancestors to leave Africa and spread into new parts of the world. This was a remarkable achievement. It meant that the human lineage was no longer tied to one region alone. It had begun to expand, to explore, and to conquer unfamiliar landscapes. Homo erectus also mastered fire, one of the most transformative discoveries in human history. Fire provided warmth, protection, and light. It allowed food to be cooked, making it easier to digest and more nutritious. It extended the day beyond sunset and gave early humans a new level of control over their environment. In many ways, fire was not just a tool. It was a doorway into a different way of life. Over the next hundreds of thousands of years, the human family tree became even more complex. Different species of humans lived at the same time in different parts of the world. Neanderthals roamed Europe and Western Asia. Denisovans lived in parts of Asia. Other ancient human species existed as well, each adapted to their own environments, each carrying their own strengths. These were not primitive shadows of modern humans. They were intelligent, capable, and in some cases remarkably advanced. Some made sophisticated tools, created ornaments, and adapted to extreme climates. The human story was never about one species alone. It was about a whole family of relatives, most of whom eventually vanished. Why did some survive while others disappeared? The answer is not simple. Climate changed repeatedly. Ice ages came and went. Forests shifted. Seas rose and fell. Food sources moved. Competition increased. Populations grew and collapsed. In this harsh world, only the most adaptable lineages endured. Evolution does not reward strength alone. It rewards the ability to change. If you have watched to this far, write 100,000 in the comments and share to a friend to get this video to 100,000 views. Around 300,000 years ago, something extraordinary happened. Homo sapiens emerged in Africa. This was the beginning of our species. At first, we were just one human species among many, but we carried something powerful, a rapidly growing capacity for imagination, communication, and cooperation. Our brains were not just larger, they were different in how they organized thought, memory, planning, and social interaction. With time, Homo sapiens developed language, symbolic thinking, art, ritual, and complex social bonds. We no longer just survived from one day to the next. We began to remember the past, prepare for the future, and share ideas across generations. We painted on cave walls. We created tools with greater precision. We told stories, we formed identities, cultures, and traditions. In doing so, we became something entirely new. About 70,000 years ago, our ancestors began spreading across the world in great waves. They crossed deserts, mountains, and oceans. They adapted to Arctic cold, tropical heat, high altitudes, and island environments. Wherever humans went, they transformed the landscape around them. They hunted, gathered, migrated, and settled. They learned to farm, build, trade, and govern. Eventually, villages became cities, cities became kingdoms, kingdoms became nations, and the small upright primates who once fought for survival on the African savanna had become the dominant species on Earth. But the story of human evolution is not only about biological change. It is also about behavior, intelligence, and culture. Unlike most species, humans do not just inherit genes. We inherit knowledge. We pass down ideas, skills, beliefs, and technologies. This is what makes our evolution unique. We are shaped not only by nature, but by memory, learning, and cooperation. And yet, even now, evolution has not stopped. Our bodies continue to change slowly. Our minds continue to adapt to new environments. Technology is changing the way we live, communicate, and survive. In a sense, the story that began millions of years ago is still unfolding today. Every generation adds a new chapter. Every discovery changes the direction of the journey, from ancient ancestors taking their first uncertain steps to the rise of fire, language, art, and civilization. The history of human evolution is one of the greatest stories ever told. It is a story of struggle and brilliance, extinction and survival, failure and triumph. And at the heart of it all is one simple truth. We are the product of an extraordinary past, and the future of our species has not yet been written.